to episode 2 of the I'm No Expert podcast. I'm really excited about today's guest. He's really seen a lot. He's experienced a lot. He grew up in Maryland, played at high school basketball at some of the highest levels you can imagine. Ended up playing Division I basketball, joined the Army, made his way all the way down to El Paso, Texas. If you guys haven't guessed who our next guest is for this episode, it's the one, the only, Coach Mac. Larry McCollum, great to have you on, man. How you doing?
I am doing great, sir. Thanks for having me.
So for those who aren't as familiar with Emmanuel, Larry McCollum is the new athletic director here at ICS, and man, he has had some big shoes to fill. Mine. As some of you know, I kind of ran the show when it came to athletics last year, and before that I was the assistant AD for several years, but because Coach Larry McCollum has done a fantastic job stepping in as an athletic director. He's masterfully coordinated a very busy volleyball schedule. He's oversaw the return of six-man football for our high school boys, so I really just can't say how great of a job he's done. So thank you for taking some time of your very busy week, man, to join me here today. I appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
So Larry, let's start this off as about cliche as we possibly can. So tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from. Start with probably how you grew up, your home life, and then we'll slowly move into high school.
Yes, sir. So I'm originally from Clinton, Maryland. It's a small city outside of Washington, D.C. I was born and raised there. I tell people that I'm from PG County. More people will not understand what that is versus Clinton. So PG County, probably the most prominent person to come out of there was Kevin Durant. So Kevin Durant grew up maybe like 10, 15 minutes away from where I did in Sea Pleasant. So that's my little claim to fame for my little hometown of PG County.
Your little hometown hero, Kevin Durant. That's very cool.
He's our hometown hero. Hopefully one day he'll come back to the Wizards, but it's not looking like it.
It's gonna be like a Michael Jordan thing. He'll spend his last season there, man. I'm sorry to tell you.
It's okay. I'll take it. When MJ came, my dad took me to literally almost every home game because he was a huge MJ fan. So I'll take 1 year of Kevin Durant there, but I won't be there probably. So either way.
Gotcha, man. I gotcha. So, tell me kind of a little bit about your home life. You know, siblings, parents, family. What was that situation like?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So, I have 3 siblings. So I'm the youngest of 4. So I got bullied a lot as a child. I love my siblings though.
A tough love. That's sibling love. I'm an only child, so I have no idea what that's like. I had a cousin that would always beat me up, and that was kind of the closest thing I had to a brother. But I'm sure it's a special thing.
Yeah, exactly. My brother, he beat me up all the time. Me and my sister, we were closer in age, so we were really getting to it. But my sister is like my best friend now. So yeah, it made me the man I am today. So I'm grateful for it. My parents divorced pretty early. I want to say I was in like 5th grade when that happened. And you know, it didn't affect me a whole lot. It actually, I feel like, benefited me. You know, they just didn't need to be together. So it was a good thing when they divorced. They're still cordial, and they all still live back in Maryland. Most of my family does. My brother, he's in the Army, so he's the only one who's not back in Maryland. But I had a good upbringing. My parents, they loved me. They were very supportive. I wouldn't be here today without them. Siblings too. We're all pretty close. So yeah, I had a good upbringing.
Yeah, I think that's something to really be grateful for, you know, having that support group, and to see how far you've gotten, you know, going through your whole career after college and everything like that. We'll get into all that, but
Yes,
you know, you really have taken kind of a long journey to get here, and so having that support group, I'm sure, is really important. So,
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So that's good to hear a little bit about your home life and your growing up. So, tell us, I guess, a little bit about your athletic background, starting with high school. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so, well, growing up, I played pretty much every sport known to man, but when I got to high school, that's when I really wanted to focus on basketball. My best sport was baseball. I was the best skill-wise in baseball. It made my dad upset when I quit baseball.
What was the thought process there? Why didn't you stick with baseball?
I just didn't love it.
Oh.
It just wasn't as fun. I didn't have a passion for it. I was just good at it. and it felt more like a chore because I was so good at that. It felt more like a chore, and I just didn't want to stick with it. Yeah.
So you ended up going to basketball,
Yes.
right?
Yes. So
Right. I know
basketball
you
was.
had a fair amount of success in basketball. Can we get into that?
Yeah. So starting off in basketball, actually, like I said, I wasn't that great in basketball early on. I got cut from my seventh grade team. I made my eighth grade team. I didn't play though. I only played a couple of times. I think I only scored like 6 points the whole season. But when I got to high school, that's when I started to focus on basketball solely. That's when I actually started getting better at it. And I actually had a coach, Coach Ice, my ninth grade year. He challenged me because I was a turnover machine my freshman year on JV. I want to say I averaged like 7 turnovers the first like 4 or 5 games. And he was the first person to really challenge me like that in basketball. And it really changed my perspective, my career, my work ethic. And I really got that turnover problem in check. So I want to say I probably ended my freshman year. I think I probably averaged maybe like 10 points. Um, wasn't necessarily the star of the team, but definitely I became a much better point guard because of Coach Ice my ninth grade year. So then moving into my 10th grade year is really when I started to not peak, but just get better. I had a trio. It was me and two of my friends. They called us the Big Three because we pretty much carried the
You
team.
guys, you guys carried. And remind me. So tell me exactly where was your high school? Tell
Yeah,
me about your
yeah.
high school.
Sorry, Saratsville High School.
Saratsville High School.
Yeah.
And I remember you telling me we had sat down a couple weeks back, and you were telling me that it was a small school, right?
Yep. Very small school. 1A school. I want to say my graduating class was probably 200 people.
That's still much bigger than where you're at
Yes,
right now.
yeah.
You know
Still
that, right?
much bigger than this. But still just a small school in general. Like, the schools here in Texas are bigger. I think in Maryland we only go up to 4A. So yeah, just a small school, 1A. But
You're just not as spread out. Like there's just it's such a heavily populated
yeah,
area. There's just
exactly.
gonna be so many different options.
Exactly. Yeah. Like there were within my house, I was in essentially in the school, the district of 3 different schools. I could have chosen 3 different schools to go to. And the school that I chose was just literally right across the street from my house. Like I used to walk to school.
Right? Real convenient.
Yeah. Yeah. So I went with that one.
Anyway, so the Big Three. You had
Yeah.
the Big Three up at Saratsville High School
Yeah,
in
Big
Maryland.
Three.
So tell us about them.
Yeah. So shout out to Alex and Chaz. Those were my my two other.
You're
parts
gonna
of
have
the
to
Big
you're gonna have
Three.
to send this to them
I
afterwards.
sure will. But yeah, we were the Big Three, and I still was the third option in our Big Three. So Alex is one of my best friends. I want to say Alex was the leading scorer. He probably averaged like 18, 19 points a game. He's a shooter. My friend Chaz, he was a point guard too, but he was more of a scoring point guard. I want to say he probably averaged like 17, 18 points. And then I was the main point guard. And I want to say I averaged like 16 points my 10th grade year in JV, probably like 6 or 7 assists.
I was about to say, were you a true point guard or were
Yeah,
you?
so I started out as a true point guard, but then when I realized, how much I can score, I started to shift that. Because in the beginning, I was like a pass first point guard. But like I said, it was pretty much just us three. We had a couple of other guys who could score a little bit, but I just needed to score more. So I did. So I became, I was still the primary point guard, but I just looked for my shot more than, I did in the beginning of the season. So I had like some pretty big outbursts. I think the most I scored that year, I think I had 27 against Forestville, and I should have had 40. I looked at the tape and I missed like 3 floaters, 2 layups, some free throws. I could have had 40, but
So you had a terrible field goal percentage, but hey, what you put up, it
But
went
I put
in
up 27.
There you go. You put
Yeah.
up 27 points. That's pretty good. That's
Exactly.
pretty good.
But yeah, it was good. That team was probably one of the funnest teams I ever played on. And when we get into like my varsity time, you'll know why. But that was probably the funnest team I played on because we just had fun. Like I said, me, Alex, and Chaz, we were just out there having fun, and we had a pretty good record too.
So sophomore year, you're still running JV.
Yeah,
your
sophomore
okay,
year I was
okay.
still playing JV.
Okay, gotcha.
And it was funny because our varsity team literally went 1 and like 21. So
And they got the big 3 on JV,
Yeah,
but
the
they're
big 3 on
fine
JV.
going 1-21.
Exactly.
Okay.
And there was a huge conversation about moving all of us up, and they did an experiment with my friend Chaz. They put him up, and the game they put him up that they chose to move him up to varsity, it just was a terrible idea because it was one of the better varsity teams. And he just didn't play that well. And after they did that, they just realized that they'll probably do more, damage to our growth than anything. So after they did that, they decided not to move us up. They did move us up for playoffs, and we all actually did get playing time in the playoffs. And we almost won the game that we played, but we lost by like 5 or something like that.
So the experiment just kind of came in a little too late.
Yeah, it came in a little too late. But I think had they started us off or started, they put my friend Chaz in a more favorable game for him.
Yeah, where he could actually compete and
Exactly.
grow instead of throwing him into the fire.
Exactly, because there were some teams that weren't that good either. But the team he played, like I said, friendly, they were really good that year. And their point guard actually was really good. I think he went D1 on a football scholarship, but he turned down basketball scholarships too. So for him to go against him, his first grade is a 10th grade on varsity, and they started him that game too. He didn't come off the bench. So I didn't have great coaches after Coach Ice for high school. Coach Ice, I only had him my 9th grade year. And wish we had him longer.
Kind of fell off after that.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
But my understanding is you had some success once you finally made it to the varsity squad your junior year, right?
Yeah. So varsity year, we had a lot of people transfer in. So we had another one of my best friends, Thomas. He came in from a 4A school. We had a friend of mine, Ray. He came in from the private schools. In Maryland, it's the opposite of what it is here. The private schools are, the top dogs, and the public schools are trying to stay up with them.
Right. And I remember, we were talking about that, I think just last week on our way to a cross-country meet or something like that. And that's something I want to get into is why you think that's the case necessarily. But yeah, for those of you who don't know, in Texas, public school's king. I mean, you have some larger TAP schools, Midland Christian, a couple of Dallas Fort Worth TAP schools that are good and can compete. I know St. John Paul II in Dallas is another good team that can compete, but the vast majority of powerhouses in Texas are all the 6As, Duncanville, North Shore, all the big schools, and that's just in football. Basketball is a whole nother beast. And so I'm sorry, anyways, we'll get into a little bit more why you think that is, but you had a transfer coming in from a private school that was pretty good.
Yeah, his name was Ray, and he was our best player. We got another big man come in from Friendly, which was one of the schools I was just telling you about. They were pretty much a powerhouse. We had my friend Avery come in from Oxon Hill. They were a bigger school, I want to say 3A, 4A. So we just got a lot of transfers. So our team went from our varsity team went from 1 in whatever to, making it to the regional championship the next year. So literally, it's a funny story. So my first summer league game, I'm warming up and I look in the stands and I see Coach Ice, and I'm like, hey, there's my coach. And I had 20 points my first summer league game, and I tested that to him because, like I said, he's the one who really challenged me. I wish I knew where he was in the world so I can talk to him about that. But I had a great game. My first summer league game, we had a good summer league. I started off as the starter, and then our very first regular season game, I had 20 again. So my career started off good. I didn't end up scoring as heavily throughout the year because we were just so dense of players. Everybody just shared the love. So I kind of converted more back into that pass first point guard again.
Those assist numbers started creeping up. I guess.
My assist numbers started getting a little higher, and my scoring wasn't that high though. I didn't score like I did in JV, but I learned to become more of the pass first point guard that Coach Ice taught me to be. Is kind of what I started to revert back to. But in varsity we had a lot of success. We went to the regional championship back-to-back years. One of the powerhouses in the state of Maryland for basketball is Dunbar. So the biggest athlete that went through there was Muggsy Bowles. Actually played for Dunbar, just to give the people some knowledge on how big of a powerhouse.
NBA trivia right
exactly,
there. That's
yeah.
Cool.
He went to Dunbar, so they've always been a powerhouse. And one of the years they flat out beat us, but another year they actually cheated very badly. We ended up losing by a point off of some very, very terrible officiating. But the other year they beat us. So it was my junior year that they cheated. My senior year, hats off to them. They got us. But so yeah, we had a lot of success. My senior year, we actually had the highest, the best record in Soratso history. So we went 20-5 that year, and that was the most wins that Soratso ever had, was hitting the 20 win mark. Like I said, as a 1A school, I think it's only two, max 3 1A schools that were in our region. Everybody else was 2A, 3A, 4A. So our competition was, just schools that were bigger than us. So that year, we actually beat every team in our league, which was a first two. We had never, even in my career, I hadn't beaten Friendly before. I hadn't beaten Largo. Gwynn Park, those are some of the other bigger name schools that we played against. I hadn't beaten them my whole career until my senior year.
Finally, your senior year.
Exactly. But yeah, and we were so good. Like, even just to give you, our best player, Ray, I think he only averaged like 13 points, but everybody pretty much averaged 13, 12, 11, 10, 9. It was kind of like that.
When you got 4 or 5 guys averaging double digits,
Yeah.
you're not going to lose many games.
Exactly. Yeah, we were putting up 80 a game. There were games where we had 100, so we were just so deep as a team. We were just a really solid team. Like I said, our coaches just weren't that good. Our coach, he went to the NFL. He was a football guy. He was our athletic director too. So he just made himself the coach. But had we had a better coach, i.e. Coach Ice,
a more basketball minded coach,
more basketball minded coach, we definitely would have won state championship twice. But I digress. I'm holding on to those dreams. So hopefully here at Emmanuel I can bring home one of those.
Well, exactly. I mean, that's definitely what we're looking for. But you came up a little short in the state tournament, but you got an opportunity that a lot of kids don't get, and so I made sure to tease everyone with the fact that you've had some Division I basketball experience. And again, just a couple weeks ago while we were driving to this cross-country meet, you were talking about some of the people that you got to play against, a little bit in AAU, some of the people you got to see, and then some of the people you got to play against going into college. And yes, now I'm disclosing the fact that you played college basketball. So tell us a little bit about that and some of the people you ran into during that process.
Yeah, so where I'm from is a heavily basketball area. Like, there's a lot of guys who make it to the NBA. In fact, when I was in high school, the number one prominent school was DeMatha Catholic. There's been schools that have kind of taken the reign from them now, but they were an NBA factory. So when I was in high school, their entire starting five made it to the NBA. And I actually got to play against Jeremy Grant. He was the one player that I actually played against myself, who plays for the Portland Trailblazers right now, and just signed a 5-year, $160 million deal.
Wow.
Which is insane because when I played against him, we were the same height. And I'm still 5'6", but he's 6'10" now.
And he was making $150 million.
Exactly. So that was pretty cool. But yeah, that starting five, it was Jeremy, his brother Jaron, Quinn Cook, Victor Oladipo, and Josh Shelby. So they all made it to the NBA. I think Vic's the only one who's still currently there.
I think Vic's probably the biggest name.
Yeah.
Jeremy Grant's done well. I mean, obviously he's getting a nice contract and he's a good player. But yeah, Victor Oladipo, hands down, is the biggest name to come out of that.
Vic is, and it's really cool because Vic and Quinn Cook, they will always be at the basketball camps that they will host. So I got to play alongside those guys. Quinn was actually on my 3-on-3 team at the Matha camp, and we won the championship for that. And it was a pretty competitive camp. They were, like I said, there were just tons of talent there, and obviously Quinn took us to the championship. Being NBA level talent.
Hey, but you got the assists.
Yeah, I did.
That's right.
He had to get the ball. Someone had to give it to him. Yeah, so that was pretty cool playing against some of those guys. But yeah, like I said, there's just so many guys who just make it to the NBA out of that area. Like right now, I think Paula Six is taking the reins, and they have a lot of kids going to one of the point guard just went to Michigan. Now they have a kid coming out who just came out this past year. He's going to Duke. So it was just a really cool experience getting to play along some of those guys in AAU, and then going into college. Like you said, I did play a little bit of D1 ball. I wasn't a star by any means again. I was a walk-on, but it was a great experience. The biggest names that we played on that journey were we played against Kansas when Joel Embiid and Andrew Wiggins were part of that team. They beat us by 30, but, it was just cool to see those guys on the court.
And where'd you end up playing again?
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. Towson University. It's
Okay.
public school, public college in Maryland, in Baltimore, Maryland.
What was the drive to Towson like? You know, you walked on D1,
Mm-hmm.
and usually I think it's safe to assume that if you walked on D1,
Mm-hmm.
you could have scholarshiped somewhere else.
Yeah.
So what was the drive to Towson,
Mm-hmm.
or kind of what were your other options? Like,
Mm-hmm.
what were you looking at the time?
Yeah. So I was being recruited by 3 or 4 schools, and mainly when it came down to it, there were 2 schools that were really interested in me. One of them was a D3 school, and they were prepared. They don't give scholarships. They were prepared to give me financial aid, though. The only problem with them and the other school was they didn't have my major, um, which was exercise science,
Okay, yeah, that's what I
kinesiology.
was about to say.
Yeah, they didn't have my major. And then the other school, same thing. They did offer scholarships, and they were prepared to offer as well. But when it came down to it, they didn't have my scholarship. And they were out of state. So that would have been 2 things where I would have been further away from family and not pursuing the major that I ultimately want. So when it came down to it, it's just me talking with my dad about what I wanted out of life, and I feel like he always gave me really good advice, and he pretty much let me know the ball's not going to bounce forever. One day it's going to stop, and you want to make sure that you have the career that you want. So when it came down to it, I was just like I'll take my chances trying to walk on. And when we get to that story, it's a doozy. So let me know when you're ready for that one, how the walk on process started. But yeah, I did have some looks. Pretty much all my teammates did, because we were such a good team. Uh, One of my best friends, Thomas, he walked on at Eastern Kentucky, so he played D1 ball too. My other best friend, Alex, I was talking about, he went to one of the schools that was recruiting us, and he broke their scoring record 10 games in. He had a 40-piece and broke their record. My friend Ray ended up going to a D2. He really didn't have the grades. My friend Chaz, he ended up going to a D2 too. He really didn't have the grades. So everybody pretty much made it to a team. Really, the only thing that separated, the ones who win D1 was just having better grade point averages. So to the kids out there that are listening, take your grades serious, take school serious. It weighs heavily at the next level in athletics.
Yeah. That's what I'm trying to tell kids nowadays. Like, you have D1, D2, they'll offer you athletic scholarships, and you have D3, which can help pay for your college, but if you don't have the grades, you can't go D3, because D3 can only offer financial aid. So anyways, I mean, I agree with you entirely. I think that's a good place to take a break. We're going to take a quick break. You're listening to the I'm No Expert podcast. I'm your host, Aaron Peterson. Today we're sitting down with Larry McCollum. We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, Larry's going to get into that walking on at Division I Towson story for us. So stay right here. As the host of the I'm No Expert podcast, I need to say how thankful and grateful I am to all of you who have decided to take the time to listen. I especially want to thank those who have decided to follow the podcast on Spotify and subscribe to it on Apple Podcasts. Thank you for also leaving reviews and comments. Those are very helpful. That helps me know whether or not I'm providing a quality product. Some of you may not know that we are on all major social media platforms. You can find us on X, formerly Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at NoExpertPod. Please like, comment, DM ideas that you may have. But when you have an idea or a topic or a question that you want us to look into, your best way of getting a hold of us is through our email address. That's noexpertpod@emmanuelwarriors.org. That's noexpertpod at IMMANUEL warriors.org. And let me just say, we're really excited about the slate of guests that we have coming up. But the thing is, there's only so many guests out there. So when you provide us with questions, topics, things that you want to hear, things that you want to learn about, that helps me better choose what expert I need to get on the show to answer those topics. So again, find us on all major social media platforms. I gave you our email address. Feel free to reach out to us there. And once again, thank you for being a listener, a follower, subscriber. Be sure to leave a comment and a rating on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, even on YouTube. And hope you enjoy the rest of this show. Welcome back to the I'm No Expert podcast. I'm your host, Aaron Peterson, and today we're sitting down with Larry McCollum. Larry McCollum is the athletic director of Emmanuel Christian School, and he's been sharing with us a little bit about his backstory. He just got through telling us a little bit about his high school playing career, his high school life, and his family life, and some of the stuff he did in AAU basketball. But he's getting ready to share with us a very interesting part of his life when he went to Towson University, got the chance to play Division I basketball. So, Larry, take it away, man. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so that story is really funny. Like I said, had a couple of offers coming out of college, but none of them really panned through. So decided to, try my best walking on at Towson University. And, I always had the dream of playing college ball. And when I got to college, I got to campus, that's when it became real, that this is no longer high school anymore. So I saw what I was up against. I, started to take it a little bit more seriously. So ironically, one of my high school teachers, her husband was a coach for the team, and also the AAU coach, Victor Oladipo. He was a coach as well. So I did have some people that I knew, like, a friend of a friend kind of thing.
Yeah, you had been around.
Exactly. Yeah. So they were there. So I remember walking up to the office to go introduce myself to the coaching staff for the very first time. My heart was literally beating out of my chest because I did not know how it happened. I just wanted them to know who I was before trials actually came. So I went up there with the intent, to just go meet everybody I could. And I've honestly, to this day, I can't think of any time I was more scared than that. So I ended up meeting the head coach. I got to talk to my old high school teacher's husband and, the other coach I knew. I just let them know who I was, where I was coming from, and let them know I'd be at tryouts. So it went well. I was excited. Went to go try out. Skill-wise, I was the best player there. There was one dude who was like 6'7", African guy. He just was, he had the height. And there were a couple other guys who were there who were more athletic than me. But skill-wise, I was the best one. So I went in there, I competed, I did very well. At the end of the first tryout, my old teacher's husband, he told me, hey, you're doing good. They see you, come back and, just keep at it. I want to say tryouts were like a 2-3 day process. So I worked hard. I did everything I had to do. And I just played really good basketball. And I got a phone call later that day. This is my freshman year, mind you. Got a phone call later that day from my old high school teacher's husband. He was like, hey, they really like you. We're working on like the logistics and stuff. So we're going to see if we can make this happen. So I'm on cloud 9. I haven't told anybody anything yet. I'm just like on cloud 9. Like I might have just made a Division I basketball team. This is only God's work. I can't do this by myself. So a couple days went by and I got another phone call, and I thought it was going to be a good news phone call, but it wasn't. It was a bad news phone call. I found out that technically I made the team. However, 4 out of the 5 classes I had were during practice time. And per NCAA rule, you cannot miss class for practice. You can miss class for games, but not for practice.
And like rearranging your schedule was out of the question at this point?
Rearranging my schedule was out of the question because 2 of those classes, it was the only class option left. So I was able to move 2 of them, but for 2, and they were like the intro classes that you have to take to kind of set you up for like your degree program.
Right, and you can't drop the class because as an NCAA athlete, you have to be attending class for a certain amount of hours to stay an athlete.
Exactly.
So you couldn't just drop them and be like, oh, I'll take them next semester.
Exactly.
You had to stay in them.
Yeah, and I was only taking 12 credit hours because I was just coming in as a freshman. I didn't want to load up, 15, 16, 17 hours. I was taking the minimum 12 at that point. So if I dropped those classes, I would only been taking 6. So long story short, it was just a really hard pill I had to swallow. At the time, I wasn't, as strong in my walk as I am right now. So I really didn't understand why God, put me through that. I was questioning him.
Why he gave you this and
exactly.
then put a condition on it almost.
Yeah, exactly. So it was pretty tough for me. But I want to say it made me more mentally tough. Where I don't know, I feel like in high school I could have had a better career if I was more mentally strong. like I said, there were pretty much two guards that were got more playing time than me. And I call it having that dog in you. Like, they had that dog in them. And I didn't have that. I was kind of like, the nice guy. And that is something that I really picked up in college. Like when I got to college and, I found out I wasn't going to play. I took a couple of weeks off, just sulking, just really upset that my dream was coming true and then it got taken away from me. But after that, I just got back to the lab. I literally was waking up at 5 o'clock every morning. To go get shots up, to go work out. Nobody was in the gym.
Making up that practice time that you were missing.
Exactly. So that's when I started to get that, and I started noticing my game going to another level. Like literally nobody could guard me in the in the open gym where just all the regular students play. Like nobody could guard me. It didn't start off that way, but as I just started to just really take it more seriously, I was doing ball handling drills. Getting up shots, getting my own rebound. I was the only one there, and I did that consistently. Matter of fact, there was a security guard who ended up knowing me by name because they had to stay there 24 hours. And he knew me because I would be there, and I'd be the only person there. Like, nobody else be there. And there were other people who, I tried out with. I would try to get them to come with me to get up shots. They didn't want to wake up that early or, just put in the extra work. But I did. I really, really wanted it. So I worked really hard, for a year. Trials came back around. And I tried out again, and this time there was no doubt that I was the best player there. Even athletically, I had become more athletic. I was quicker, I was faster, I was stronger. So there was no doubt in my mind that I can make the team this time around because I just did it. So went to tryouts, played well again. Did well. However, the two connections that I had were no longer there. So both of those coaches that were there my freshman year, they got jobs elsewhere for my sophomore year. So I didn't have any inside men this time. So long story short, technically would have made the team again. However, my school had Title IX issues. So they cut X number of football spots. They cut X number of basketball spots. And that's on the roster, that is.
And the teams had to become smaller.
They had to become smaller.
There's not scholarship money for the scholarship athletes,
exactly.
And therefore there's not room for...
Exactly. So, and then with that, they cut our baseball team entirely and our soccer team entirely on the men's side because of those Title IX issues. And actually the mayor of El Paso just happened to be a huge baseball fan and ended up giving us the funding that we needed to keep baseball.
The mayor of El Paso, too?
El Paso, Maryland. The mayor of Maryland.
The mayor of Maryland.
Yes.
Dude, you got to remember where you're at.
But see, El Paso's my new home, bro.
There you go. There you go. It's funny that you said that, though, because I was just going to bring up the fact that UTEP doesn't have a men's baseball team and UTEP doesn't have a men's soccer team, and it's for very similar issues. You have to have... I don't know if it's equal, but you have to have. There's a ratio of female sports scholarships to male sports scholarships, and if you can't get it to work, you got to cut something.
Exactly.
And so it's funny that you mentioned El Paso because I was like, well, it kind of makes sense. We're in the exact same boat.
Yeah.
But anyways, the mayor of you said Baltimore.
Yeah, the mayor of Baltimore
put up the money
to get our baseball team. But yeah, as far as I understand it, with the Title IX issues, I believe it's the ratio of the students has to match the ratio of the student athletes. So let's say the school is 60% female, 40% male. Athletics has to represent that too. So ours was just off. We had too many male athletes, too many male sports. Therefore, they had to cut some of those roster spots from some of the more prominent teams, and then got rid of some of the other sports that just aren't as popular, especially on the Maryland. Football and basketball are the big ones.
So in a year, your spot just disappeared into thin air.
In a year, my spot just disappeared. So here I am again on the cusp of making my dream come true and not understanding why. And still not as strong as in my walk as I need to be. Definitely still a believer in God and in Jesus Christ, but just trying to understand what He's trying to teach me. So I just get back to the lab again, and I just put my head down and just get to work. Making sure I'm maintaining my grades. I had a 3.5 grade point average up until this point. So I took my my academics very seriously because I knew that, that might be the, determining factor one day. Continue to just work harder than everybody else. Like I said, those same guys who tried out in my freshman year, they were there my sophomore year, but I was just outworking those guys, and it started to show. Like I said, in the open gyms, like they just couldn't guard me, and I don't say that like arrogantly or anything like that.
You say it factually.
Yeah, just a fact. They literally just couldn't guard me. And I love those guys, but they just couldn't guard me. And, I was just getting better. I was getting better at my craft. I just became more of a basketball player. Like I told you, I grew up not being that great of a basketball player. I just loved it. And it's like the hard work that I put in that made me the player that I am. I wasn't naturally gifted in basketball as I was naturally gifted in baseball. I just worked really, really hard. So, and like I said, my mental changed, and I started to get that dog in me.
So that thought never crossed your mind? Like, I have this baseball background where I was really solid. You never thought of pursuing that? I remember you saying you felt like it was a chore. You weren't in love with the sport, but being in a position where you could have your college paid for or something like that. The thought never crossed your mind. I'll switch back to to baseball.
Nope, it never crossed my mind. It crossed my dad's mind.
I'm sure. Yeah,
he brought that up. Yeah. Up until I left my house, he always talked to me about how I could have been this great baseball player and potentially made the MLB. You know how your parents, they have dreams for you, but you have your own dream. So basketball was my dream, and I just wanted to work really hard at it, and I did. I kept working. I kept getting after it, and then finally, my junior year came around, and I tried out, and like I said, again, I just stood out. I was first on all the suicides. I wasn't as tired as everybody else. There were guys that were bigger than me. There were guys that were taller than me. But from a basketball standpoint, I was still one of the top 3 players there for sure. And I made it over some of those other guys because mainly 2 reasons. Aside from the basketball stuff, my work ethic and then my grades. And the coaches told me straight up that had a huge part in it. I had good grades. Teams get scored, on a grade scale. And, the higher you are, the better off the team is. I don't know if they get like extra funding or whatever it may be, but I helped them get them to a higher bracket with my 3.5 GPA.
Raise the average GPA.
Exactly. Raise the average GPA. And like my work ethic, they knew I was going to come to practice. I was going to work hard. I was going to challenge the other players. So I ended up making it. And I just remember getting that phone call. It's hilarious. I was on the bus and going to one of my classes, and I get a call from an unknown number. So remember, my freshman year, I knew the guy who was calling me. But this year, I get a call from an unknown number. And this was before scam calls and everything like that. So it wasn't a big deal to pick it up, So I picked it up and I answered the phone with the accent. And
you chose to prank. You had to choose of all days. You choose to pull a prank on a caller.
My gosh!
Of
all days, I chose an accent, and I'm not even gonna repeat the accent because I was immature. and they're asking, "Is this Larry McCollum?" And I still respond in the accent, and they're like, I'm not gonna say the coach's name, but they're like, "This is such and such and coach from Taos University," and I got it together so quick. I was like, "Oh, yes, sir. This is Larry McCollum. How may I help you?"
Larry, dude. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
You got to tell me what accent it was when we're done with this.
Yes, I will.
Oh,
I will.
Gosh.
I'll do it for you. But he said, yep. He was like, "This is such and such from Taos University men's basketball." He was like, "I'm just calling to let you know that." We would like you to be on our roster this year. You have officially made the basketball team. Come to my office and we'll start the paperwork. And I was just blown
through the roof.
I was like, this is crazy. It's actually happening. And it honestly kind of got to the point where, I started to think it. I don't know if it would actually, worked out this way, but if I didn't make it, if I would have tried out again my senior year, like even if I could go through the heartbreak again. But at that point, I was, because it actually took them a long time to call me too. It was a couple of weeks. Whereas when I tried out my freshman year and would have made it was pretty quick. And maybe because I had an inside guy who got me that information. But it had been so long that I just accepted the fact that, I hadn't
This
made
phone
it.
call's not coming.
Yeah, it's not coming.
It's not going to happen.
I didn't make it this year. Like, I would have made it those other 2 years. But I want to say my junior year, the competition was as good as it had been. There was actually a guy who played at St. John's University. I made the team over him.
In Boston, right?
Yes.
Dang.
I made the team over him, and he was much better than me at basketball. He used to light me up at open gym. I used to light him up too, but he lit me up.
He had the edge. He just had
the edge.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah, he was so fast, and his handles they were amazing. He was just really good. But I'm telling you, I made the team because of my work ethic and my grades. Those were the two things that got it for me. Because, as a walk-on, you're not going to start. You're just there to challenge the players. You're there to, just be what the team, needs. And they just viewed that in me more than they did in him. And so I attested to those two things. So I was just on cloud nine. I just remember going to the mall afterwards, and I just walked around the mall literally calling everybody I know and just telling them that I made the team. And they're like, nobody believes me. They're like, stop playing. I'm like, I'm dead serious. Like, I just got the phone call. I'm like, wait till you see me. I'm going to get my uniform, blah, 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 blah.
Come to a game. You'll see me.
Exactly, come to a game. So it was just, it was probably the best phone call I've ever gotten.
Oh, dude, that's awesome. That's awesome. Wow. So that was your junior year.
Yep.
Spent a year with the team.
Yep.
Senior year.
So senior year, the same thing happened as my freshman year. I had one class that was during practice time, and it was a major class, so I needed to graduate. So there was no, and since it was for my major, they only offered it to one. It was only one class, so that was the only class time they had. So I just ran into the same problem, and I actually thought about transferring to a different school because of that. Because I just wanted to play basketball so bad.
You fell in love with it that
exactly.
junior year.
Yeah, that experience my junior year was just so fun, and I only got in maybe like 5 games. And I'll show you the tape of one game I scored in. But it was just so fun. Like, my dream just came true. And here it is getting ready to get ripped out of my hands again. So I actually looked into transferring. I spent that whole summer hitting up colleges, those same colleges that, were recruiting me. But, still didn't have my major. I hit up some other colleges that had my major just to see if it made sense. And long story short, it didn't make sense. I would have only so many credits would have transferred.
And the transfer rules would have been different anyways, right?
Exactly. Like, transferring down.
Because this was what, 2000?
This was 2014 when I was looking to transfer.
So the transfer rules across the NCAA were a little different than they are right now.
Exactly.
It's not
there's no transfer portal.
Trading from one team to the other.
Exactly.
No.
Yeah, you can't do that. So it was a lot would have had to happen, and honestly, it just would have pushed me back further in life. So it's just one of those things that I just had to. I thought the pill to swallow about making the team was hard, but the decision to make it to not. It was even harder to swallow because I just had such a good experience. Like I said, we played against Joel Embiid, Andrew Wiggins. We played against the Villanova team that won the national championship. So Ryan Archidinego, I can't remember the guy who hit the game-winning shot against North Carolina. But we played against those guys too. Like I said, we got our heads knocked off. But
I'm trying to think of who hit the game-winning shot now.
Yeah,
they had Diacono. They had.
Yeah, it's going to kill me too.
And I don't want to look it up.
Yeah.
Wow, dude. So Villanova, when they won the national championship.
Yep.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So it was just an amazing experience. Like being a Division I athlete, like I said, I came from a very, very small high school to now being a D1 athlete at the second biggest school in Maryland, which is a huge shift. I mean, the strength conditioning equipment, the recovery equipment. We had, the ice tanks.
The support staff, the training staff, the training department, I'm sure was beyond anything you could have imagined ever seen.
Exactly. At high school, we had one athletic trainer, who just wants to be one. They're aspiring, so they don't really know what to do.
They're probably like a grad student.
Yeah. Exactly. But here at Towson, we had a staff of 10 plus people. the head trainer. They were just all very, very knowledgeable. And the one thing I liked about it, they didn't treat us, the walk-ons, like walk-ons. So there were three of us in total, and we got the same treatment that the scholarship players
You're on the
did.
team. You get the same stuff that the
Yeah.
teams can. Everybody else, every scholarship player,
Exactly.
you get the same.
Yeah,
That's
we
cool.
got that
That's
same
awesome.
treatment from them. There were some other departments where they treated us like walk-ons, but the training staff, they didn't. If we needed our ankles taped, they taped them. They didn't ask questions. Like, they let us use the cold tubs, the hot tubs. We had access to all that stuff. They have, like, recovery drinks. They got a little snack shop. We were sponsored by Gatorade, so there was always the Gatorade recovery drinks.
The power gel.
Yeah,
Did you ever
the
power
power
gel?
gels,
Oh
we
my
had
gosh.
those,
Did you
like-
actually use it?
Yeah, I didn't.
Oh, okay.
I didn't, because I didn't need them. I was just clapping on the bench for the most part. Yeah, so it was pretty cool. It was a pretty cool experience. Yeah, because even as the walk-ons, we will actually work out before the games, because transfer, like you said, there was no transfer portal before. So players who were coming in, they had to sit out a year. So we had the year I played, we had a transfer from Vanderbilt come in, and pre-game he had to work out, like, because he couldn't play, so he had to work out. So as walk-ons, we took it upon ourselves to work out with him. So we did the weights that he did, we did his skill workouts that he did, to push him and for us to get better too. And there was actually one game where this was our first home game that we worked out, and we went to the cold tub, and we were late to warm up. So they were mad at us that we were late, and our legs were ice cold too. It wasn't a good idea to hit the cold tub.
The cold tub right before you
before
had
the
it.
game. Yeah, because we were ice cold. Thankfully, it wasn't a game that we would have gotten into, because it would have been bad. Because I just remember my legs just being so stiff. But we never made that mistake again. Man, it was just a really, really cool experience. I don't trade it for anything. Even how it played out, like, God's got a plan. His plan's superior to our plans, and it just definitely taught me a lot. It made me who I am today. I just know those experiences, they form, they shape us. So I'm extremely grateful for that time.
So round it out for me now. You're playing ball in Maryland. You're at Towson. You're up in the East Coast. You're up there. Towson's by Baltimore, right?
Yeah, Towson is
okay.
it's in Baltimore County, right outside of Baltimore City.
Okay, so you're up in Baltimore. You're in El Paso today. So what was that journey like? Sum that up for me if you can.
Yeah, of course. So I had my major of exercise science, kinesiology, and I wanted to be a strength coach. So if I couldn't make my dream of playing professional basketball come true, I wanted to help athletes' dreams come true. So that was my goal. When I graduated, had my degree, started off at
Let me pause you for a second.
Yeah.
How much did the good treatment of the training staff back at Towson play into you wanting to? I know you weren't part of like the training staff wrapping ankles and stuff, but did that have any effect in you being like, oh man, dang, these guys treat me really well?
Yeah.
I want to be that for
Yeah.
another athlete.
Yeah, so I had that dream before that experience, but that just solidified it, because it just made it. It was just pleasant. It was nice. Like, it's like I said, it's just really cool. Being in collegiate athletics was just really cool. And like, just how they helped, us out. We had injuries, they took care of us. Yeah, that's what I envisioned, and now I seen it in that staff. So I was like, you know what? I kind of want to, I still, want to pursue that. So when I graduated, I started off as a performance coach at it was a gym, but it had like a private sector where we trained athletes. Because pretty much to be a strength conditioning coach, you either got to know somebody or you got to have your master's, and you have to have your CSCS. So I didn't have either at the time. So pretty much worked the private sector until I studied to get my CSCS, which stands for Certified Strength Conditioning Specialist, by the way. So I got that, and then I went to go do an internship, because that's another big thing. Schools want to see you have an internship. I did an internship, and now I was ready for the next step in applying to graduate school, to get ready for that. So in the meantime, while I did my internship, I lost all my money. So the internship was free. I had to stop working at the private sector. So while I was doing that and applying for the school was going to pay me a stipend, and I was going to get my master's. So that was the plan. So as I'm going through this, my brother, he was like, one day randomly, he was like, okay, what's your plan B? If, going to this graduate school doesn't work out. And I'm like, Hmm.
Heck if I know.
Yeah, I don't have one. I guess I'll go back, to work in my private sector, but I really didn't want to do that. So long story short, what ended up happening was I made it to the very last round of interviews for that graduate assistant job, and I ended up second in the running for that. The guy who beat me did his internship at Alabama, and I did mine at a D3 in DC. So he just had a better resume than me. But at that point, I felt like God was telling me, like, I just need a change. And my brother's in the military, so he put it in my ear. Look at going to the military.
Army, here we come.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. He was like, they'll pay for your school. You'll be able to get your master's. That'll take you to the next step in your career. So once that didn't happen, I also had a lot of stuff going on in my personal life where I just had to get out of Maryland, or at least where I was living at. I was back home, just hanging around the same people, doing the same things, and all those people weren't doing the best, just the best things. My two best friends, one was already in graduate school, and the other had moved to New York. So I was pretty much there without my support cast. My friends are Christian too, so all the other guys that hang around, they weren't Christian. They were getting into things that I shouldn't be doing. So at that point, I was like, God, you're telling me that I need to move, and I'm gonna move. And this was the point where I really started taking my walk with Him seriously. And I said, Lord, wherever you tell me to go, I'm gonna go.
And He said, the Army.
He said, the Army. Everything just worked out so well. It just happened, boom, boom, bam. I'm like, all right, God, you're opening these doors. I actually tried to go to the Air Force. It was like a 3-year wait. Army was like a 6-month wait. But in that 6 months, that was the time I needed to get everything together to leave. Yep. So it was just the perfect timing. I was like, Lord, you're telling me to do it, so I'm gonna jump. I'm gonna follow you.
You jumped on it. Wow. Okay, man. So what year is this? What year is this that you're in the Army?
This was 2018.
So 2018.
August 2018 is when I officially swore in to leave for the military, and I left January of 2019. No, sorry. August 2017 is when I swore in. 2018 is when I actually left for the military. So from January to December 2018, I was in training for the military. So I was in Fort Benning, which is in pretty much like Columbus, Georgia area. I was there for about 6 months, doing boot camp, doing my officer candidate school training. And then from there, I went back up closer to home to pretty much the Richmond, Virginia area at Fort Lee. Spent 4 months there doing my basic officer leader course. And then that's when I found out I'm coming to El Paso, Texas.
El Paso, Texas. So, you got up to, if you don't mind me asking, you got up to what rank?
First lieutenant.
First lieutenant.
Yes, sir.
And by the time you came to El Paso, you were already a first lieutenant?
No, by the time I got to El Paso, I was a second lieutenant.
Okay.
So pretty much the way that worked was I enlisted into the Army with the intent of going to OCS. So technically, I went in as an E4 because I had my bachelor's degree. Once I completed basic training and got to OCS, technically an E5, because you have to complete it in order to commission as an officer. If you don't complete it, you just go into the regular Army as E5. And that happened to some of the guys who I went through basic with. They didn't make it, so they went in, enlisted. So once I graduated OCS, at that point I was a second lieutenant. And then that's what prompted me to be able to go to my basic officer leader course because I was officially an officer.
Okay. And to my knowledge, you had someone who outranked you, right? When you came to El Paso, someone who you got to know pretty well.
Yes. So technically, my wife outranked me only because my wife did ROTC, so she went straight into the Army, out of college. So her commissioning date was a couple of weeks, maybe a month before mine. So technically, she outranked me, and she held that over me. Yeah, technically, she held that over my head the entire time.
And so you meet your wife. You meet your wife to be at the time.
Yes.
And
so I actually met her in Virginia. We met there. And I knew that she was going to the same unit as me because of her unit patch. So that's what prompted me to go up to talk to her. And then when I talked to her, I found out we were supposed to go to the same company when we got here. So we really didn't talk much in Virginia because we weren't in the same class. So I didn't see her that often, maybe like 4 or 5 times, hi and bye. But when we got here, we got to the same unit. And We were, even though nobody believes us, we were strictly friends at first. But it was kind of the hard times that we experienced in the Army that pretty much just brought us closer together. So we were friends for about 9 months or so before she realized that she just couldn't live without me. And
Naturally.
of course. And then, yeah. And then, no, God was just telling us, you guys need to be together. It's just one of those things where, God's just telling you to do something. And God tells you to do it. You better listen to him.
Amen to that. So now you guys get together. You guys get married in.
We got married November 29th, 2020. It was the peak of COVID.
Oh my gosh!
Literally,
yeah.
we were scared we wouldn't be able to get married because all the businesses were ordered to not be open. It was at that point where they were starting to shut them down. But some businesses were,
You still had food.
Exactly.
Still had music.
Exactly.
It worked out.
So it worked out. We had a very small wedding. Only our close family came. There were actually some people who didn't make it because of just the
Different concerns.
Concerns of COVID. So very small wedding, but yeah. So we'll be married for 3 years this coming November.
3 years this November. Man, that's awesome.
It is.
That's awesome. That's a crazy journey, man. To get all the way to El Paso. I mean, that has to be. I mean, that has to be only God, in my opinion, because you look at your ups and downs at Towson.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I almost made the team this year, but I didn't make it this year, and then I finally made it.
Mm-hmm.
And then my senior year, I want to stay playing, but maybe not here. But there's really no other option,
Mm-hmm.
and so there's just all these ups and downs.
Mm-hmm.
And then you look at, going into grad school and where you almost ended up. From my understanding, where you would have ended up, the situation was not great.
Yeah, it wouldn't.
They got in trouble where you almost ended up going to grad school, but you didn't.
Mm-hmm.
You go to the Army, you meet your wife, you end up in El Paso, Texas as the AD of Emmanuel Christian School.
I'm telling you, it's only the hand of God. He's just so sovereign. And as I look back and I reflect on those things, I wouldn't have it any other way. But, I've been hearing lately, as I've been listening to some Christian podcasts, people say that if God showed you what you'll have to go through to get to where he wants you, you'll never do it. So.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And it's right. Because if
we're scared, we're cowards.
Exactly.
I mean, if we knew the fire that we had to walk through to end up being the people that God wants us to be, forget it.
Yeah, we wouldn't do it. We would back down. And I definitely would have backed down had he showed me everything I would have been through. And I know that's the same for everybody. I say that to say that, I'm not special in any regard. The only thing that I could truly attest to is just submitting to the will of God. I didn't want to go into the military, but it was just so
glaringly obvious that this is where.
Exactly, that God was leading me to, that I had to listen to him. And he's been so faithful every step of the way. He has not left my side, and I'm honestly just grateful for how it all turned out.
So talking about God being so faithful, I really don't want to speak for too many people. Would you say you were raised Christian?
Yes.
Okay. So, I think most Christians who were raised Christian, and I'm putting air quotes around that, they've kind of had two come to Jesus moments in their life. And praise God that you've had that belief that he's been walking with you and guiding you every day. And it's not just your belief. I think it's a fact that he has been walking and guiding you every step of the way. But I think those Christians who are raised Christians, they have two come to Jesus moments in their life. You pray a prayer when you're younger and you're saved and you do that, right?
Yep.
But then life goes on. We get into high school. We make stupid decisions. We go party. We get involved with people that we shouldn't. And it's not, for me personally, it wasn't until I got plugged in at college with the Baptist student ministry and some really good friends that I've made there. That was kind of my second come to Jesus moment. And what I mean by that is I really made my faith my own. It wasn't another chore to me going to church. I found myself actively going to Bible studies. I looked forward to church, and I was seeking out evangelism opportunities, which has never been my strong suit. So did you have a similar experience growing up?
For sure. I got saved when I was 8. And it was just I
think I was 12. That's my general remembrance.
Yeah. I was 8, maybe 10, 8 to 10, somewhere in that range. And, they called us up who wants to, come to the altar and be saved? And I was literally the only person that went up that day. So because I was the only one, they actually had me say something. So
Oh gosh.
I was a shy kid. I don't know what came over me. It had to be the Holy Spirit, but I actually said a really nice little saying, and I remember to this day. I said, pretty much said, I want to give my life to God, and I said thank you for my mom and my dad and my grandmas for showing me the way, but most importantly, I want to thank Jesus. And I just remember saying that verbatim, and I know that I was saved at that point. And like I said, raised Christian, went to Bible school, Bible study, went to Sunday school, did all those things. But when I got to college, I got away from all of that. I got into some different experiences, got in with the wrong people. I wasn't around those friends that were Christian, that I grew up with. And yes, I definitely had that second coming to Jesus moment, and mine was literally at the point of making the decision of going into the army. Um, I was battling some really heavy things from poor decisions, um, that I made in college, people that I hung around that I shouldn't have been, things I was doing that I shouldn't have been, and it got me completely off track. And I actually had one moment, that really, God literally took me to rock bottom. Like I had never felt so low in my life, and from that moment, literally, He said, "Put your eyes back on me." And from that moment, I've done that. I haven't done it perfectly, but He definitely called me back to Him, and that's why I was able to make that decision to go into the army, because He had torn me down. He had took away everything from me. I no longer had basketball anymore. I no longer had the people in my life that I had who I thought I wanted there. He pretty much told me, "I'm all you need." So, I had my family in my life. It was very hard for me to leave them going into the military, because it's all I knew. But He pretty much just told me, just focus on me, and I'll get you through it. And I'm a testament right now that he was true to His word.
He very aggressively said, "This is where I want you to be. This is where I need you to go."
Exactly.
Man, this is a great conversation, and dude, the first half was so interesting, from the Towson walking on and everything back. That was awesome. This I know was going to be awesome. I know you have to go in a little bit, so you're going to come on a second time. I need you to agree to it right now.
Yes, sir.
Okay,
I will be back.
you're going to come on for a second time, but I really want to hit you with this last point before we go today.
Mm-hmm.
So you talk about God opening doors.
Mm-hmm.
You talk about God taking away every other option you had, and you end up going in the military. Your life goes on. You end up here. I'm very grateful for it. I hope you're enjoying your time here.
I am.
So many high school, college students, and I was one of them, who didn't know what they wanted to do for a long time. They were really looking for direction, and now you have college students, almost adults, almost kids who are done with college, who still don't know what they want to be when they grow up.
Mm-hmm.
And just why do you think that is? Why are kids, I say kids, I was one of those people just like 3 years ago, but why are people now just so directionless, so without any compass as to where their life should lead? Why do they struggle to find meaning, purpose, direction in life?
Yeah. So I honestly, speaking from my own experience, I believe it's because they aren't grounded in God's word, and in the plan that He has for them. So my whole life, I felt like I knew what I wanted to do, and sometimes I was right, sometimes I was wrong. But the thing that I can always fall back on is God knows where I need to be. He knows the purpose He has for me. So when I look at myself and I look at the kids that we talk to every day, I just feel like they are directionless because they aren't as rooted as they should be. And that's not a fault to them. They're kids. Like you just said, we were once those kids. But God has a plan for us. And it wasn't until I dropped everything that I had and picked up my cross and followed Him did He start to reveal that plan to me. And during it, I had no idea what He was doing. I had no idea. I was in the army. and I didn't know why I was there. I didn't fit in. I was never a what they would call hua type of person. I was just lost in that, but I was right where I needed to be, because those are experiences, like I said, that he's used to shape me into who I am, and I no longer put my will above his own. So when I talk to kids and I let them know, what they should be doing, um, I tell them, go to God, run to Him. Don't seek happiness; it comes and goes. But just try to figure out where God wants you to be. And I actually had a conversation with a student not too long ago, where we were talking about, like, what he should do with his life. He just kept telling me he doesn't know what he wants to do, and I told him, pick 3 things that interest you. God puts things on your heart that He wants you to do, and just pick 3 things and choose some options from that, and see what doors God's open. Like my brother told me, what's your plan B? I didn't have one at that point, and I didn't end up getting into that grad school, and that was the only plan I had at that point. Had my brother not told me to have a plan B, I might still be at home working at that same facility that I was working at, with still no purpose and no direction. So my biggest advice would be to seek God, seek His will, die to yourself daily. We have things that we want to do, we have things that we think that we want, but the cool thing about God is, even my life is a testament. It's the degree path that I stuck true to through all the trials and tribulations. From the very beginning, I stayed true to, wanting to seek out the exercise science degree. And I remained faithful in that because I believe that's the plan God had for me. And that's the degree that was able to prompt me to become a, officer in the Army. The degree that prompted me to be able to get the job here at Emmanuel as the athletic director. And I had a completely different path laid out, but it's still along the lines of what I dreamed of, like, as a young child. And God's plan is just so much better than ours that I'm just truly grateful.
I love that, man. That's awesome. I think people nowadays don't realize how much of this world we hold on to holds us back from keeping our eyes focused on Jesus Christ.
Exactly.
And when our eyes, it's so cliche, but it's the walking on water.
Exactly.
When Peter stepped out of the boat and he had his eyes on Jesus, he was fine. Second he took his eyes off Jesus, he started to sink. That's a simple. I mean, if you want that clarity, I think that's really where it comes from. Die to yourself daily. I love that. Larry McCollum, we need to have you back. We are going to have you back because we did not spend anywhere near enough time talking about everything, dude. Everything. So,
yes, sir. This has been fun, man. I can't wait to come back. This has been a blast. I will definitely be a regular if you'll have me. Dude,
you better believe it. We're getting some new equipment. It's coming in next week. It's going to be awesome. Yes. It's going to be awesome. Well, thank you, Larry, for coming on. We appreciate having you. You have been listening to the I'm No Expert podcast. My name's Aaron Peterson. Today we sat down with AD Larry McCollum. We hope that you'll join us for our next episode. I wish I could say it's going to be next week. I'm not entirely sure, but we will definitely do our best. So God bless you guys. Love you all. Die to yourself daily. Just remember that. The I'm No Expert podcast is written, produced, directed, and edited by Aaron Peterson. The theme song for the podcast is All For You by Adrian Walther. Special thanks to Emmanuel Christian School for providing us with equipment and support to make this podcast possible.